Welcome to the 2001 AERA Awards Virtual Celebration. Please welcome your hosts, AERA Executive Director Felice Levine and AERA President Naila Suad Nasir.
Well, welcome everyone to the 2021 awards ceremony and celebration. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to co-host with AERA President Naila Suad Nasir. And we are poised for our honorees to come down the red carpet and have both our formal ceremony as well as Naila and I having the opportunity to meet with our awardees backstage. We hope you enjoy this event, whatever your time zone, and that you celebrate our field and really such highly accomplished awardees. So it's especially my pleasure to turn over our welcomes to Naila, who too would merit, and dressed for the occasion, the red carpet. So Naila.
Yes, I brought the red carpet with me this evening. Thank you, Felice. We are celebrating an amazing group of scholars tonight, and I'm just so excited for the ceremony and the time we have to honor our colleagues. And I must say, I think this backstage red carpet thing is something when we return to in-person, we're gonna have to have an actual red carpet, Felice. So you gotta get ready to start.
You got it.
That. Great. Well, great to see everyone here tonight. And I have the honor of introducing our honorary president, Professor Edmund Gordon, who's going to join us virtually with a message. But I want to say a little bit about him before we turn to his video. For those of you who don't know, Edmund Gordon is the John M. Musser Professor of Psychology Emeritus at Yale and the Richard Marteau Professor Emeritus of Psychology and Education and the founding director of the Institute of Urban and Minority Education at Teachers College, Columbia University. From July 2000 to August 2001, he was the Vice President of Academic Affairs and Interim Dean at Teachers College. He has had an incredibly illustrious career. He's been a minister, clinical and counseling psychologist, a research scientist, an author, editor, and of course, a professor. He was the senior advisor to the president of the College Board, where he developed and co-chaired the task force on minority high achievement. He's been the author and or editor of over 15 books and over 175 articles on topics spanning structural inequality in education, divergent learning styles, supplemental education, and many other topics. And he leaned into those ideas long before most scholars had recognized the importance and existence of them. He was chief of the Head Start Research Office under President Lyndon Johnson. Yes, pause on that for a moment. He has been a member of AERA since 1962, and his work and ideas have stayed relevant and cutting edge for decades. He is currently AERA's honorary president. Looking forward to hearing his message.
Madam President, and my fellow colleagues in the AERA, we are gathered to honor and to thank a few of our colleagues for their distinguished contributions to our craft. To know or produce knowledge, to interpret it, to apply it, and to disseminate knowledge. We thank all of our guides for your collective human intellect and deontic human action. Thank you to these our honorees for using remarkable smarts in the service of humankind. As one of your oldest members, I can recall being mentored by the late and renowned Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. It was from Du Bois that I learned to think of our common discipline, that is education, to think of education as the quintessentially human characteristic. We as a species are unique among animals in that we educate each other. We teach each other how to think, how to generate ideas, to know, to interpret, to understand, to discern relations between things. Du Bois also taught me that we humans, if we are fortunate enough to understand, we have a responsibility to act on that understanding. It is never enough that we learn and know. But as I argued the first time I tried to retire, that was from Yale back in 1991. I argued then and I argue now that our knowing and that our understanding carry with them a deontic responsibility, that we act, that we take action, that we try to do something about the problems of humanity and the problems of the universe. Today we honor and say thank you. Thank you to those of our colleagues for their excellence at learning, for the goodness of their knowing, yes, for their understanding, but especially for their use of all of these accomplishments to act for the better good. In an unfortunate period of excessive and pronounced human immorality, we celebrate you for your moral actions. And we, the members of AERA, thank you for engaging in superbly deontic and professional activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed, for joining with us. You always elevate our thoughts, our minds, and our hearts. We benefit from your wisdom and your humanity each day. Before we begin our formal ceremony and celebration, in an annual way, we take a few minutes to reflect with some moments of silence about our colleagues who died over the past year. I appreciate for all of us to make the transition from the last few moments to our ceremony and celebration is likely very difficult. But the past also augurs well for our future as we look ahead. And now we will begin with our first award.
The 2021 Outstanding Book Award goes to Dr. Cabria Baumgartner for her book, In Pursuit of Knowledge, Black Women in Educational Activism in Antebellum America. Dr. Baumgartner provides a powerful analysis of Black women's purposeful educational activism in antebellum America. Typically, historical accounts of desegregation and civil rights in education are situated in the South and often explore the role of established organizations and legal and political machinations that engendered an expansion of rights for African Americans. In this book, Baumgartner uncovers an origin story of sorts that begins with the struggles of African American women and girls who understood that education was one necessary element in their quest for freedom and self-determination. By centering the courage and wisdom of African American girls and women, and by weaving all these stories together, Dr. Baumgartner challenges past narratives and paints a fuller picture of the long, continuing struggle for equal education in the United States.
I'm fascinated by the early Republican vision in the United States that a stable democracy requires an educated citizenry, and how African Americans figured into that. Scholars in my subfield have long focused on the link between education and the expansion of democratic forms and opportunities.
Cabria, we are so happy to be standing with you on this red carpet, just hearing about your work. And we have a couple of questions for you before we head back into the event. In Pursuit of Knowledge, Black Women in Educational Activism in Antebellum America is your first book. What compelled you to write this volume?
I would say that I was influenced by my own story of my own educational story, my pursuit of knowledge, and that of my family. So in some ways, I guess I was predisposed to it. I witnessed my mother go back to college as a non-traditional student, and that was something that really inspired me.
That's amazing. We share that experience. My mom and I went to the same college at the same time. That's another story for another time.
All right, well, I could say that I too share that because my parents both got their GED degrees when I started college at that same time. And just to follow up on this, it's great to have you with us. It's a powerful book. In the doing of it, what obstacles did you sort of face in really such a sustained scholarly effort?
Thank you. And I also just want to say this is a great honor. I also want to extend my thanks to really the community of scholars and librarians and archivists who helped me identify research collections, who expanded my thinking and supported my research. I was really appreciative of the funding that I received to do this work. The Spencer Foundation was very helpful, and then organizations like this one. So I'm going to talk about the obstacles, but I also just want to talk about the wonderful support I had. In terms of the obstacles, I think one challenge for me in working on this book was finding archival materials about Black women's education in the early American Republic. And the difficulty is partly because documents related to Black women's lived experiences during that historical period were not often archived. And so I think the challenge for any scholar doing work on historically excluded groups becomes that much more challenging. But one thing I was able to do, and this is part of my training in Africana studies, is that I was able to carry this sort of Black feminist approach with me during the archival research process. So I was thinking about just the very fact that we're not often taught to look for the stories of Black girls and women in the archive. And now there is a generation of scholars who are doing just that. And I was in the great position of being able to really build on that work. And so when I entered the archives, I adopted this kind of defiance in my search for Black women's stories of learning and schooling and teaching. I knew the stories were there, and I trusted that I would find them.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, and congratulations.
Yeah, way to
Thank
go.
you.
The recipient of the 2021 Review of Research Award is Dr. Adam J. Alvarez for his article, Seeing Race in the Research on Youth Trauma and Education, a Critical Review, published in the October 2020 issue of Review of Educational Research. This article brings a much-needed racialization lens to research and theory about trauma and education. Dr. Alvarez expertly weaves together scholarship from a variety of disciplinary perspectives to shed light on the role of structural racism in student experiences of and responses to trauma, as well as educators' assessments of those responses and the interventions researchers design. By centering a need for race consciousness on the part of both educators and researchers, Dr. Alvarez reframes trauma away from implicitly deficit-based narratives. He positions it instead as a racial equity issue and a matter of institutional responsibility, providing concrete recommendations and reflections for the education research community.
I have a personal interest in this work. I know what it feels like to experience something traumatic. In fact, I think we all do, but I'm excited to just be a part of the movement that's going to lead us to a place where we can think differently, talk differently, and really study youth trauma differently. That's what I'm excited about, and that's what keeps me going in this work.
Adam, we just want to congratulate you. What a tour de force. This award is selected from a long list of review of research pieces, and a traumatic potentially even in itself in the execution of such a review article. Could you tell us about how you approached writing this piece, particularly at the intersection of so many sectors of literature?
Yes, thank you so much. I also want to extend my thanks to the AERA community and my family as well for supporting me through this work. I think we all know that this work comes at a cost, and so it's important to be supported. The approach, first of all, it was a labor of love for me. I worked as an elementary teacher for 6 years at a residential treatment facility, and so when I moved to the University of Pittsburgh to start my doc work, I carried a really special affinity toward students who were experiencing traumatic things and just life changes and general struggles. And so a lot of people don't know this, but I actually began this project as a second-year doc student in 2015. And I was kind of working on it on the side as I was taking care of my other graduate research responsibilities. Needless to say, I was working under the tutelage of Rich Milner at the Center for Urban Education, so there was always lots of activity going on, and so I had to put the project aside and didn't pick it back up until 2018 when I started working at Rowan University, where I am now. But it was just piece by piece, just reading, organizing. I would never recommend anybody take on a project of this size alone. I learned halfway through the process that collaboration is really important, and I wish I'd done more of that. But the process was really, it was settling for me. A lot of people said, what do you do for a downtime? And I said, I work on this project. It was so meaningful that I just wanted to see it all the way through. And when I finally got the note back from Dr. Murphy, the editors at AERA, I was just like, my heart was just so thankful to see the project all the way to the very end. But I guess a message to any doc students that are listening, take hold of those ideas that you're capturing as doc students, and you're writing those things down. They may not come to fruition right now, but I promise if you just just hold on to them, get them on paper. They'll resurface later when the time is right.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, Adam, and congratulations on this beautiful piece of work.
Thank you.
The 2021 Palmer O. Johnson Memorial Award goes to Julie A. Edmonds, Fati Anlu, Jane Fury, Elizabeth J. Glennie, and Nina P. Arshovsky for their article, What Happens When You Combine High School and College? The Impact of the Early College Model on Post-Secondary Performance and Completion, published in the June 2020 issue of Educational Evaluation and Policy Analysis. Early college programs enable students to graduate in 6 years with both a high school diploma and an associate degree, or 2 years of college credit. In this outstanding study, the authors investigate the longer-term outcomes for graduates who continue on to college. Using a rigorous lottery-based experimental design, they find that students not only complete college in less time than peers who follow a traditional path through high school and college, but also they do so while achieving comparable grade point averages. The committee admired the article's clear findings and nuanced discussion, which have far-reaching implications for education policymakers and administrators.
Education research matters because all children participate in the education system for several years, and education affects their life course.
Research that our group does helps educators to improve innovative programs they design and helps them to gather evidence for sustaining and scaling up these programs.
I do education research and evaluation because I believe in the power of data, broadly defined, so numbers and stories, to improve outcomes for students.
Delivering education efficiently, effectively, and in an equitable manner is one of the biggest challenges our society faces nowadays. Education research matters because it aims to address these challenges.
So great to see you all here on the red carpet. Welcome and congratulations. There is nothing I love more than a good collaboration. Will you all share with us what brought the five of you together to undertake this research and write this amazing article?
Sure, thank you. And I'll get started and then everybody else will jump in. But we're really thrilled that we've received this award. It definitely made our week, if not our month, to get the notification. Four of us actually, Fati, Beth, Nina, and I, we've been working together for about 15 years doing this work. And I joke that this is actually an endurance award that we've received here. So about 2000, so our work started about 2006. And at the time I was really providing research support to an organization that was implementing early colleges. And it was such an interesting model. And I really noticed that schools had more applicants than they had spots. And so that really opened it up to the opportunity for a randomized control trial. And so we submitted a proposal to IES in 2006 and that got funded and the partners on this paper were included on that. And that was the first grant which allowed us really to create this sample of students and we've been following them ever since. And so each member of the team really has their own levels of expertise. I really had knowledge of the model. And then Fati?
Yeah, I was at Apt Associates then, and I had started actually working there as a junior PhD level researcher. Just a few months before, I was brought into this project to contribute to the design and run the quantitative analysis. So this was one of my very first projects, and it ended up being my longest project.
Beth?
I was directed the North Carolina Education Research Data Center at Duke University, where we acquired data from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and tried to create analytic files that would permit innovative analysis of questions like this. And so I've been focused on analysis and trying to transform data to let us do different kinds of research.
And then Nina?
I joined the group in 2008. I actually joined the Serve Center with Julie to work on this project, and I'm doing qualitative data collection and analysis for all of our studies with early colleges and beyond. And for me, the most exciting part is to actually go to the schools and talk to students and to teachers and to see how excited they are to participate in early colleges.
So
Actually been
Go
doing this. Oh, go ahead.
no, go for it.
I was going to say, we've been doing this for so long that we've actually been able to nurture lots of young researchers. And so, and many of them have been able to go on and do their own doctoral work. And Jane was one of those young researchers that we were able to involve, and she was able to make substantive contributions to our project.
Yeah, and it was an invaluable experience to work with such generous and sharp researchers so early in my career.
All right, well, we know you want to celebrate. It obviously took a village, and you know, that's the essence of so much significant education research. So just 3 cheers for what you've done. The Palmer Johnston Award is just, you know, a seminal marker of fine, fine work, and congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Bianca J. Baldrich is honored with the 2021 Scholars of Color Early Career Contribution Award for her groundbreaking scholarship on community-based educational spaces in communities of color. Through the scholarship, Dr. Baldrich has centered and highlighted often invisible voices, such as youth community workers in academic discourse. Her scholarship grounds these voices in critiques of power and racial capitalism, thereby advancing knowledge about the critical intersections of oppressive social systems and some of the most pressing issues in U.S. society and beyond.
My passion for research and community-based education is the strength and resistance within Black communities. The power of learning environments outside of school in community organizations, families, and the spaces that young people create for survival and healing is essential. Schools have never been the only side of education and will never be. This reality drives my research and compels me to show up for and alongside young people and community-based educators.
Bianca, we are thrilled. Hats off, congratulations. Really one of our most distinguished and important awards. So if I could just throw a question to you before the celebration. As an early career researcher, what advice would you give in retrospect, looking back, you know, some nuggets of reflection or knowledge that would be important to others at your stage, or what was your stage?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just have to thank my family and community for supporting me. The advice that I would give early career scholars would be to trust your work, trust your ideas, and avoid comparisons to others. I would also say find a community of people, of scholars that are affirming, who support your work. I did not get here by myself. I have a wonderful community of sister scholars and family members and mentors and advisors and students who have supported me. And so I really think that having a nurturing community to do your work is really important.
That's great, wonderful. So good to see you, Bianca, and congratulations on the new job, the new gig there. I didn't notice. Your research focuses on community-based youth organizations, and I'm wondering, what are your hopes for how your work might shape what happens in those kinds of organizations, or what happens in schools for Black youth?
Yeah, I love that question. I think it's important to recognize that these spaces are important for the nurturing and development of young people, and that this work is also historically rooted, particularly within Black communities, right? It's not new, even though the words that we might use to describe youth work or after-school education might be new. The work towards resisting harm and thinking about youth work towards educational freedom and dignity has always been a part of Black communities. I would hope that my work shows people that these places are complex and that they deserve really deep scholarly inquiry. And then I also hope that it can lead to material change, in particular for community-based youth workers, to really validate who they are as pedagogues, as educators, and then also hopefully leading to increased wages and benefits, and to really bring them into broader educational policy discourse. And then also just recognizing that youth workers and community-based spaces are an integral part of young people's learning ecosystem. I think it's really important that we honor not just schools, but also community organizations that support the development of young people.
Well, great. Thank you so much for your work and all of your contributions to the field. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Megan Bang is recognized with the 2021 Scholars of Color Mid-Career Contribution Award for her unique and powerful contributions to Indigenous education. Her scholarship is innovative, integrating Indigenous knowledge systems with learning sciences. While Dr. Bang has had a prolific career, it is her approach to advocating through her research that distinguishes her scholarship from the larger field. She integrates her commitment to underserved communities into the research process by foregrounding relationships and community throughout. And she utilizes her research to advocate for federal and state policy that acknowledges and centers some of the most critical social and political issues that impact both Indigenous and non-Indigenous populations.
To me, raising and educating young people is, in my view, amongst the most important and complex work there is for human beings to engage in. In fact, I would argue that raising young people is how our collective social futures are crafted. Simple, really. Educational research is central to doing that in a rigorous and principled way.
Dr. Bang, welcome to the red carpet with Felice and I. So wonderful to see you. I didn't just, we kind of just spent all day together in meetings. Great to see you in this forum as well. What some people may not know about you is that you started out your career as a Head Start teacher. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about how that start influenced either your scholarship or your commitment to improving practice and our policy in education.
Yeah, I so appreciate that question. I became a Head Start teacher partly because my life trajectory and my brother's life trajectory was so dramatically different. And my mom had a working theory it was because of early childhood experiences. And I kind of found my way there. But I feel like one of the things that's most important to me, and I use this line now in every class I teach about inequality, is to say, great, we have all these solutions. So what's it mean for a 5-year-old tomorrow? And part of the reason that I really love that idea is because what I learned as a Head Start teacher is that young children are full of possible futures, and they're full of wonder and passion and interest about life, and their capacity to love and feel is really remarkable. But I also learned really early that how we shape what they should spend their day doing reflected adult desires about potential worlds that were problematic in my view. So, I tell people most of the time, I have a hard time with adults, but put me around 5- and 6-year-olds and I believe that the world could be really different. So in some ways, they really taught me not to foreclose any potential futures.
So I could attest to the fact that you have no problem with adults. But I share the passion for the earliest among us. And I just would like to get some of your reflections around particularly this COVID-19 time, Megan, how it's disrupted learning environments worldwide, in particular for minoritized youth. And are there some takeaways or reflections you might have about some of the paths from here?
Yeah, might not be very popular, but I think my biggest concerns is that moving forward, we might legitimize entrenching deficit perspectives and remedial pedagogies that will actually cause generations of harm further forward. And I think while there are many disruptions, we've also been in a time where families have been reunited for the first time in many generations. And I think I think there are many challenges, obviously, that we're all facing, but I worry a lot about that we foreclose being able to see what other possibilities could emerge because of the change in our daily routines of life.
Well, we should all go for it.
Yes, and congratulations, Megan. Well deserved.
Yeah.
Dr. Zeus Leonardo is the 2021 recipient of the Scholars of Color Distinguished Career Contribution Award. This award is a reflection of his prolific career. Dr. Leonardo is one of the leading scholars on issues of race and education and utilizes critical theory to produce cutting-edge analysis of social issues in education. Leonardo is perhaps best known for his work in critical whiteness studies, and he has produced scholarship that has had a profound impact on current understandings of the deeply embedded biases at the core of knowledge in the education field. As such, his work is instrumental in understanding how scholars can shift conversations to be more equitable.
I do the work that I do in order to be interesting, as well as to maintain my own interest in what I do. I like to engage provocative ideas, not in order to be provocative, but so that we can ask new questions and push boundaries on well-understood topics and themes like race and other social relations. This way, we can address the problems that affect us all.
Zeus, congratulations. You are not only a distinguished career contribution award winner, but you are also a distinguished contributor to our field in so many ways. And so when you reflect, if I could just throw a question, what has most enabled and supported your research productivity over the years? What's that additional DNA that's kind of made a difference?
Well, I like to think of myself as an interdisciplinary scholar. So what has helped me maintain my own excitement about the work I do is that I engage scholars and read their works across the disciplines in sociology, philosophy, psychology, cultural studies, race and ethnic studies. And so I'm surrounded by conversations, all the time that I enjoy and that I get a lot out of. So that pushes me to think very differently about the work I do and enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations, Zeus. It's so great to see you here on the red carpet. We've come a long way since the Graduate Student Lounge at Moore Hall. I won't say what year that was. But your career has been amazing, and your research has had such an interesting arc. I'm wondering, looking back at that body of research, what's your hope for how it will shape and inform future scholarship?
So I once wrote that I went to graduate school, as you mentioned, Moore Hall at UCLA, to study race. And in some fundamental way, I got class, which is to say class analysis. So I came out of that with a very complicated, what I call race class analysis now, that I've never regretted for 1 minute. So what I hope for the future of work in race and research in race is that we continue to marry it with other kinds of perspectives, other kinds of studies, so that it really enriches and really expands our understanding of how race relations really do intersect with other relations such as class, gender, sexuality, and so forth. So I think as we go forward, my advice is that, that we don't become possessively invested in what we do, and that we listen to each other and that we expand our aperture of how we might critically understand race and racism in education.
Good guidance and congratulations. We look forward to celebrating with you in person. But we hope you enjoy the rest of your celebration today.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
The recipient of the 2021 Distinguished Contributions to Gender Equity in Education Research Award is Dr. Elizabeth Jackson Meyer. Dr. Meyer has been a pathbreaker throughout her career. Her research focuses on gender and sexual diversity in schools, an intellectual agenda begun at a time when few scholars ventured into these topics. Dr. Meyer created a conceptual framework, gendered harassment, that forms the foundation of research, policy, and practice designed to improve educational environments for LGBTQ youth. Her research on gay-straight alliances, teachers of transgender and gender creative youth, and legal protections and case law form a foundation for the field. Dr. Meyer has set the highest example for scholarly accomplishment in the study of gender in education.
The passion for my research comes from almost 30 years of struggle, advocating for and with lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning students, as well as disrupting the silence and ignorance around gender and sexual diversity in schools. I want my research to save lives by eradicating racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia in schools.
Well, welcome here to the red carpet with us and congratulations. You are not just an amazing scholar. You have another skill set. You are a prolific blogger. You blog about gender and schooling on the Psychology Today website. I'm wondering how that experience of blogging has shaped your own research and how you communicate about research.
Well, I was so thrilled when I had the opportunity to be invited to create that blog because it just gave me this opportunity to connect more directly with teachers, students, families, the people I really hope to benefit from the work and the research that I do. It also reminds me of the urgency of my work because I hear from students and teachers all the time from reading my blog with questions and needs and demands for more information and more progress. And it really helps me hopefully make sure the work that I'm doing gets into the hands of the people who can make the changes at the ground level, people who don't necessarily have access to peer-reviewed journals behind paywalls, and to write in a way that hopefully really connects with people who care about what happens in schools. And it could be parents, it could be teenagers, it could be classroom teachers, but folks who aren't always picking up our academic journals.
Well, that's a really important message. You really exemplified in your work what AERA and other scholarly societies thankfully are pivoting to and attending to in our field from the earliest of education through higher education. What policies and practices, what one or two nuggets of knowledge would you think would best support and affirm all forms of gender diversity?
Well, I just want to start by thanking this professional association because without the Queer Studies SIG supporting my work from graduate school and to now, I would not have had the community of knowledge and support to be able to move towards the progress that we have seen in the past 20 years since I've been doing this work. But one of the most important policy things we need to do is stop passing and start repealing harmful laws like no promo homo, abstinence-only sex education, exclusionary policies that prevent trans youth from fully participating in the life of schools. We need to get rid of some of these really damaging and barrier-filled policies. We also need to pass more non-discrimination laws. Not enough states have protections for LGBTQ youth and educators who are the ones doing this work on the ground and put themselves at great harm by speaking out and trying to push back, for putting up a safe space poster or hanging a pride flag in their classroom. So we really need to have protections in place so the groundwork can happen. We also need education preparation programs to include gender and sexual diversity in their administrative training programs and the teacher prep programs. So when they get into the classrooms, when they get into these school buildings, they have the language, they have the knowledge, they have the research background to be able to respond to parents who are hesitant, who might be resistant, and to feel confident in the leadership decisions they need to make to ensure that all kids in their school feel safe and affirmed and welcomed and a place where they can belong and learn.
Yeah. Really important insights. Yeah. Congratulations again.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The 2021 Exemplary Contributions to Practice Engaged Research Award goes to Dr. Oki Lee. The selection committee was deeply impressed with Dr. Lee's application of a research program that has effectively transformed elementary science education with bi and multilingual students. Dr. Lee's proposition that science learning and language learning mutually support each other by nurturing students to use their full range of meaning-making resources can be observed through Dr. Lee's tireless work generating applicable classroom-level research that leads to effective practices. Dr. Lee's 5th grade science curriculum, Science and Integrated Language, enhanced with the addition of a computational thinking model, is being tested by school teachers across the state of New Jersey. Dr. Lee's research has broad reach and powerful implications for education practice.
Educational innovations have the potential to widen gaps. This makes equity in science and STEM education especially important. All students, including multilingual learners, must have equitable opportunities from the inception of innovations, not as an afterthought.
Congratulations, Oki. Let's hear it for you. You know, when I thought about science and integrated language curricula that you've developed called SAIL, I thought of you and how you do SAIL. And I was wondering, what led you to develop the 5th grade curriculum? What was that pivotal thought you had?
So when the new science standards are called, the next generation science standards were developed, I was a member of the writing team and leader for equity and diversity team. So I was a part of the policy. Now, in particular, these standards provide the opportunities to integrate the science and language with the multilingual learners. Now, because the introduction said about the SAIL and the integrating computational thinking and modeling, I'm not going to say that. So I would like to say a little bit about what mutually supportive means. That in the science standards, all students are doing science like scientists and engineers. Multilingual learners are doing science using language. And as the students develop science understanding, they become more proficient in language as a product of doing science, not as a prerequisite or precursor before doing science. So that is our approach to developing curriculum. And I would like to thank the teachers and the students as well as the district leaders. And I wanted to thank the National Science Foundation for funding.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Oki. You've recently published an article about what science and STEM teachers can learn from COVID-19. What were a couple of takeaways from that piece?
So when we were doing science standards, it was about the phenomenon-based. The students are doing science to figure things out. Now, currently, our society faces a societal pressing challenges like COVID-19 and climate change. And these challenges disproportionately affect minoritized groups because of the injustices in the system. So our team is proposing a conceptual framework for justice-centered STEM education. And our students are engaging in multiple STEM subjects, including data science and computer science, as they make sense of phenomena of these complex challenges, and they design solutions with justice at the core. So the simple way to think about it is that we typically think of follow the science of solutions, and follow the science of solutions are necessary, but they are not sufficient. We need to think of a people first, particularly minoritized groups at the center where science serves the people rather than the other way around.
Well,
thank you.
Congratulations. We celebrate you and your really long-term commitment to these issues. Have a great time.
Thank you so much for the honor.
The recipient of the 2021 Social Justice in Education Award is Dr. Sharon Fries-Britt. Her pioneering work on high-achieving Black students has influenced the leadership and practice of social justice across many campuses in the United States. She has also been lauded by her colleagues for her courage and resilience in her ability to influence leaders in systemic systems of power and privilege. Moreover, Dr. Fries-Britt has been recognized as one of the leading voices on equity and inclusion in the sciences. Her scholarship brilliantly engages multiple constituencies from government agencies to foundations and to national organizations in advancing social justice by addressing some of higher education's most challenging problems. Among these are building capacity for diversity, equity and inclusion, increasing success for students and faculty of color, and improving campus racial climate.
What drives my passion is the ability to be able to center and focus on Black academic lives, to really be able to feature what Black students have to share about their navigation in the academy, and Black faculty and staff just really provides an opportunity to tell those stories and to center those stories. And that keeps me highly motivated to do this work.
Welcome to the red carpet, Sharon. So great to see you this evening.
It is great to be here.
Yes. So your work is on a set of topics that is timely and critically important right now. You focus on campus racial climate and working with leaders on these issues. Given this moment and the societal challenges at this moment, how can researchers and leaders stay positive and motivated when the situation feels so dismal?
Wow, thank you, Naila, for that question. It's so central to what we're all struggling with at this moment because it's difficult. And I guess I would identify a couple of things. One is I think we have to learn to be in relationship with a lot of different kinds of emotions when you're doing this work and when we're living through these times. We have to be able to understand that emotions are indicators of information for us. And so it is natural that there are times when we are angry and even enraged at some of the inequities and the injustice that we see. And so I think it's important to not ignore it, number one, to start. But you can't stay in that zone of letting emotions that will take your energy down. And so I think it's important to also have practices and engage in ways with a community of folks who can help keep you motivated. But for me, I tend to lean towards not only just the work I do to keep my mind and intellectual self sharp, but to also just take care of my spirit and my soul and my physical self. Because this is work that drains you. And when we're dealing with the range of emotions, we need to also just know when to step off and know when to take care of ourselves. And then the last thing I would say is that, what we really attend to, if we put all of our energy in negativity, we're only going to keep reinforcing that. So we have to go deeper to know, why are we doing this work? And what piece of this work can we make a difference at? And so I look to those kinds of things to keep myself motivated, but I also know that I am not successful every day. So I step off and step back when it's difficult.
Well, I suppose, Sharon, that maybe formed the basis of what you and your co-editors drew you to do this guide for succeeding in the academy. So you've already given us some great tips. Do you have one takeaway tip before we let you go and celebrate?
Yeah, I would say, you're referring to our book on
Black
women.
Building mentorship networks is so important.
Yes, that I'm working on or have worked on with my colleague, Dr. Bridget Turner Kelly. And there's a lot of takeaways, but I guess if I had to pick one, I would say the intentionality at which Black women, we have learned in this work, really work to build networks and communities to get each other through navigating the Academy's difficult terrain. It is still not a process in 2021 that is geared to really support Black women in a way that we need it to. And so we do the work to help each other be retained, but our systems need to do a better job to really do that work as well. So that's the nugget I would leave you with.
Thank you, Sharon, and congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Dr. Henry Bourne is the 2021 recipient of the E.F. Lindquist Award. Dr. Henry Bourne is internationally known for his influential contributions to empirical, theoretical, and integrative research in statistics, measurement, and public policy. His research on the interpretability of test scores and indicators, value-added modeling, international large-scale assessments, and the impact of testing and test use on equity has advanced measurement and testing practices. In recognition of his scholarship, he was elected to the National Academy of Education and was the recipient of the Robert L. Lynn Memorial Lecture Award by AERA's Division D in 2018.
Every day is a puzzle to be tackled. It's exciting to uncover data patterns or relationships that yield some new insights, conflict with perceived wisdom. The world of education skills is incredibly complex. Trying to make sense of even a small part of it is a worthy challenge, especially if it can inform policies that affect the lives of children, with particular attention to leveling the playing field of opportunity.
Henry, congratulations. The E.F. Lindquist Award is a really distinguished honor, well-deserved by you. You are widely regarded for your cross-cutting work across so many areas. I'm going to throw in, and also for your generosity of spirit. But when you think about your career and how it's gone across so many different sectors, what made the difference for you? What do you think supported you in making those contributions?
Well, first, thanks to the committee for granting me this really very special honor, and thanks, Felice, for your comments. I would say I owe a lot to my educational training in mathematics and mathematical statistics. That's stood me in good stead through the years. And I've also always had this curiosity to learn about new things, to try to make connections. And in that, having wonderful mentors, colleagues, and having spent time at Princeton, then at DTS, and now at BC, finding myself in a world in which I was able to move from one area to another and without suffering undue hardships. So it's been really a great journey, and it's one that I hope has had an impact on both on the technical side, but also in helping other educators, policymakers, and even the public at large become more discerning consumers of social science research.
Well, congratulations, Henry. This is such an important time for issues of testing and measurement, this kind of post-COVID moment. What do you see as the next big challenges in testing and measurement, and what research do we need to help address them?
Well, I think a lot of that research has been spoken of this evening. I think we in the educational measurement world need to take seriously the issues that have been raised now more saliently, certainly in the last 5 years, around systemic racism and the way in which racism has been embedded, if you will, in many of the educational structures, and particularly in testing. So I think we need to engage with that with an open mind. And with that, we need to think harder about how to create assessment strategies, approaches that are more individualized without giving up entirely on this notion of comparability that has been the touchstone of standardized assessment for nearly 100 years. But I think we can go well beyond that. We have when we need to. And I think the times demand that kind of flexibility and creative thinking, really.
Just a great judge. Congratulations and thanks again.
Thank you.
The recipient of the 2021 Outstanding Public Communication of Education Research Award is Dr. Daniel Willingham. The award committee voted unanimously to give this award to Dr. Willingham based on his significant and extensive contributions to our understanding of cognition as it applies to K-12 education through a variety of media and public venues.
I think research is one of the greatest inventions of human culture. If we diligently apply this set of intellectual tools, we know we can improve education and ultimately make life better for kids. What could be more important?
Welcome and congratulations. It's great to be with you here on the red carpet. Dr. Willingham, what advice would you give education researchers about translating their scholarship to inform policy and practice? It's such a highly desired and difficult to accomplish skill set.
I think my first piece of advice would be just try it. Like, write an op-ed. Make yourself available to policymakers. Let reporters know that you're ready to be a resource to them. Very few of us feel like we education researchers are especially well represented in the public eye. So I think it'd be great if more of us would put a little time and effort into that project and work at it. Dr. Gordon, in his opening remarks, used the term deontic responsibility to share what we know. And I thought that was really beautifully put. I think so much of us really have treasure to offer. And so I think we should offer it.
So if I could follow up, this is such a significant commitment, I think these days in the research and science community in general, and definitely for AERA over this, definitely over this decade, if not century. Indeed, this award itself was established in 2015 and first conferred in 2016. So it was well before you got into this in a way that you were instigated. What made a difference for you in that pivoting to valuing the communication of knowledge?
I think what made a difference to me was learning more about what teachers face and the extent to which they feel sort of separated from research. They know that there's this active community trying to figure out how we can make their work easier, make their work more effective. And they learn about it during their teacher education, and then they feel removed from it. And they know that we're all busy trying to make the world better, and yet it's very difficult for them to access. And so when I sort of saw that firsthand and spent some time talking with teachers about their frustration about that separation, that was when I felt like I really want to spend more of my time trying to build bridges across that divide.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, congratulations on the award and best of luck to you.
Thankfully you have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The recipient of the 2021 Excellence in Media Reporting on Education Research Award is Nicole Hannah-Jones. The selection committee for the award reviewed the work of many education reporters and found that Ms. Hannah-Jones stood out for her careful reading of and reporting on the educational research that informs the issues she's writing about, from issues of racial segregation, the intergenerational impact of systemic racism on Black communities and their schools. At the core of her work is a penetrating examination of the research in education, the social sciences, and history that enable her to produce evidence-based journalism that rewrites long-held narratives about issues of race and education in the US. As a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, a staff writer at the New York Times Magazine, and the creator of the 1619 Project, Ms. Hannah Jones has spent her career investigating racial inequality and injustice, and her reporting has earned her the MacArthur Fellowship, a Peabody Award, 2 George Polk Awards, and the National Magazine Award 3 times.
I'm so honored to be receiving this award tonight from you all because frankly, my work could not exist without the work of education researchers. I have relied on this research for all of my most important reporting on school segregation, on school inequality, and have really found the depth of research to be what informs what are the directions that I want to take my own journalism in. I have tried to collaborate with education researchers and have always found education researchers to be so willing to work with me as a journalist, to work on even trying to create data sets together and really doing this work much like myself, in service of better education for all of our children. So it just means a great deal to me to be honored by you all tonight. And I look forward to continuing to read and learn from your research and also hopefully help to expand your research out to the larger audience so that we can all understand the importance of having better data and better understanding about what works best for our kids. Thank you.
So we want to thank Nicole Hannah-Jones and congratulate her for the very important work she does and has done. She's been a great partner with the education research community and a frequent presence at AERA meetings. The Media Reporting Award was also established and first conferred in 2016 in recognition of the importance of that connection. And Nicole Hannah-Jones has exemplified that in her work and her commitment to doing so. So hats off. We look forward to seeing you in person. And we welcome the fact that you sent a video clip when you realized today that you were unable to join us live.
Dr. Uriya Jabbar is the 2021 recipient of the Early Career Award. Dr. Jabbar is a prolific scholar employing rigorous and creative methodological approaches to studying some of the most pressing education policy issues of our time and engaging both the research and policy communities with her work. Her scholarship has significantly contributed to our understanding of how school leaders navigated charter schools, including their perceptions of competitors, their strategies for gaining a competitive advantage, and how the charter market is both stratified and tiered, and how the social structure of the teacher labor market depends on the overall concentration of charter schools in a region.
What drives my research is a curiosity and a concern, really ever since I was a young child, about how wealth and opportunity are distributed, how markets and market-driven reforms can reproduce or exacerbate existing inequities, and what we can do to change that through education.
Congratulations, Aria, and we're grateful that you took a moment to stop and chat with us on the red carpet. Your work focuses on market-based ideas in PK through 12 and higher education and how that shapes inequality, opportunity, and democracy in the United States. Big, thorny issues. What inspires you to undertake research in this area?
Thank you. And thank you so much to you and the committee members for this amazing honor. I think like many people, what inspires me is my personal and professional experiences. So I studied economics before coming into education, and I've always had questions about the underlying assumptions of those models, what economists call the equity efficiency trade-offs, and really the lack of sufficient attention in mainstream economics to issues of structural and systemic inequities. I also worked in philanthropy before I came to do my PhD, and I interacted with venture philanthropists. And that experience also raised some concerns for me about who was driving social policy and priorities, and especially pushing market-based ideas in schools. And I was really only able to make sense of that and theorize and articulate those concerns about policy and politics and power when I came to grad school, and especially through working with Janelle Scott. But these questions about what makes and who makes and influences policy, who should influence policy, I think those are just such critical questions in understanding the potential of education to achieve its democratic aims.
Your work, as you just reflected on, transcended so many disciplinary and field boundaries. And so successfully, what advice would you give to those starting to build their research careers as you did, I'll say, X number of years ago?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just what you said about spanning many disciplinary boundaries, I think one piece of advice I would give is just to read widely and talk to lots of different types of scholars and thinkers. I think that's one of the benefits of being in education is that we have access to so many different perspectives in the field. I think, the other piece that the others have alluded to as well in this session is just that it's so important to build and sustain networks that can support your work, that, both inside and outside of academia. I know, my peers, my colleagues, mentors, my students have helped me to provide concrete advice on things like publishing and where to target manuscripts, et cetera, but also just that deep and substantive feedback and constructive feedback on your work to make it better. And I think that's really one of the most important pieces is that community of scholars that can push your thinking, encourage you when you need it, and so on.
Yeah, so important. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you in person.
Congressman Robert C. Bobby Scott is the 2021 recipient of the Distinguished Public Service Award. Congressman Scott was first elected to Congress from Virginia's 3rd Congressional District in 1993 and was the first African-American elected to Congress from Virginia since Reconstruction. Both in his current role as the chairman of the House Committee on Education and Labor and as the ranking member of the Committee on Education and the Workforce from 2015 to 2018, he has worked tirelessly to advance an agenda of educational equity. He was a primary co-author of the Every Student Succeeds Act, in which he sought to improve upon many aspects of the preceding No Child Left Behind Act. Congressman Scott also championed the recent overhauls of the career and technical education system and the nation's juvenile justice structure. A longtime friend of educational research, he has always listened to evidence and sought to understand the true impact of changes to policy beyond the posturing and politics typical in government.
I was an elementary school student when Brown v. Board of Education was decided, and that decision included these words: "In these days, it is doubtful that any child may reasonably be expected to succeed in life if denied the opportunity of an education. Such an opportunity is a right which must be made available to all on equal terms. I'm committed to ensuring that every student is offered that opportunity."
Good evening, AERA.
I'm sorry I couldn't join you tonight, but I want to thank AERA and all of this evening's award winners. Your research, as well as the critical work of AERA, continue to fuel our efforts to deliver high quality, equitable education to students across the country. Your work is especially important as we recover from COVID-19. As you well know, students and educators are making up for lost learning time due to the pandemic. And to address the achievement gap and support educators, Congress passed President Biden's American Rescue Plan, which delivered over $120 billion to our nation's K-12 schools. This was the largest one-time federal investment in K-12 education in our nation's history. I'm also pleased that the Build Back Better Act, which the House passed last month, will provide schools and institutions of higher education with another round of investments to prepare students for the modern economy. By making preschool universal for 3- and 4-year-olds, and by lowering the cost of college, we'll help set a strong foundation for students to succeed. I look forward to working with education researchers to ensure that we deliver these investments equitably and improve the lives of all of our nation's students. Thank you again, AERA, for this award and for supporting student success.
Well, hats off to Congressman Bobby Scott. He has just been such a significant, evidence-driven, data-driven leader in advancing sound education policy, from his commitments to early education through post-secondary and beyond. He's a frequent attendee at AERA meetings. He is sent this video because he was intending to join with us live this evening, but indeed the House is in session and he is doing the important work that he does day in and day out for every parent, every educator, and every student. So hats off to you again, and we welcome you when we can see you and hear from you again in an AERA forum.
The Distinguished Contributions to Research in Education Award is the premier acknowledgement of outstanding achievement and success in education research. Its purpose is to publicize, motivate, encourage, and suggest models for education research at its best. The 2021 Distinguished Contributions to Research in Education Award goes to Dr. Carol D. Lee. Dr. Lee is President-elect of the National Academy of Education and member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She's an AERA Fellow, past President and Vice President, and a Center for Advanced Studies in the Behavioral Sciences Fellow. Dr. Lee's groundbreaking work in cultural modeling is the standard for understanding and leveraging the rich linguistic and social cultural repertoires of African American youth. Her research has unabashedly interrupted deficit discourses and practices that have pathologized minoritized youth, and she has inspired a generation of multidisciplinary scholars to deliberately foreground culture, race, and social context in the education of children of color.
Educational research matters because education, particularly public education in a democracy, is the place where we have opportunities to prepare new generations to take up the mantle of the challenges they will face as humans and the challenges they will face as civic agents. And research can inform how we do that work.
Welcome to the red carpet, Carol, and congratulations on this amazing award. Some might say you're having a sweep of awards this year, those who are following Carol's illustrious career. I want to say this might be the third ceremony I've personally attended, and I know that there were others. So congratulations on this wonderful recognition. One thing that I have always admired about you is that you are a scholar and an amazing scholar, but you also walk the walk as a person who's founded and run community-based schools. Can you talk about why that work in schools has been important to you and how you've managed to wear both hats for so many years.
Well, I would say that the work that we started some 50 years ago in Chicago, establishing independent African-centered schools, and in 1998, several African-centered charter schools, has really been a foundation on so many levels for me. When we first started our school, I had been trained as a high school English teacher and ended up teaching third grade, about which I knew very little. And virtually all of us who started that school were in a process of learning how to take the fundamental understandings that we had about the brilliance of African-American children and translate that into practices. And so we studied together. And so studying and engaged in practice has been really from the very beginning of, at one level of my professional career, part of what I've done. And I've also tried also in my research, certainly in the first decade of the research work, as I would design curriculum innovations for schools, I would actually teach myself teachers with whom I was working. So pulling these issues of research and practice together, to me, is the essence of what it means to be a teacher.
So Carol, always a teacher. First, I should say, 2000, I think, 10 president and a distinguished leader in so many ways, in addition to and enabled by a strong and fine scholarly record. So I'm going to give you a shot at the apple here, Carol. And that is if you could instigate one important direction for the scholarly community to move, you know, some big issue that we should really tackle, what would you want to charge us with doing at this point in time?
Well, it's an issue that I'm actually thinking about in terms of starting my presidency at the National Academy of Education. I want to thank my colleagues at Northwestern University, where I've worked for close to the third year, where I had a wonderful opportunity to engage with both colleagues in what was the emerging field in the learning sciences, but also with colleagues in human development. And I have taken from that work the importance of the powerful ideas that are emerging about human learning and development. Big ideas from learning sciences, from psychology, from development, the neurosciences. I might, as a little add, that we've reflected that in a handbook, the Handbook of Cultural Foundations of Learning that Naila, myself, Roy P., and Maxine McKinney DeRoy have just published with Rutledge. But that human learning is so fascinating and complex that we don't have sufficient, we don't sufficiently accept the fact that the disciplinary lens in which we are trained only allows us to have a very minor slice of understanding how complex human learning and development is. And I think that the next stage of work should be more collaborations across scholars working across different disciplines, employing different methodological tools together to try to begin to capture that complexity. I'm inspired when I look at my young grandchildren. I have adult grandkids and I have little grandkids, looking at the little ones right now, and this absolute passion for learning that they have, that is driven by the fact that they're human beings. And I think that if we can become grounded in this understanding that diversity and pathways of learning is what is essential for the human species, all of these assumptions that we keep wrestling against, these deficit notions around race and class, et cetera, will come to us as purely absurd ideas. And as I have indicated many times, if poverty was the fundamental limitation of human capacities, the viruses would be running the world, which they may be doing right now anyway, right? because the majority of human beings across the world live in poverty that we cannot imagine. That all of these structures that we create are barriers, yes, but the profundity of being human is the opportunity of resilience. And there are no communities in which we don't find resilience in the face of challenge. We just don't do a sufficient job of highlighting and trying to understand that complexity.
Thank you so much for those wise words.
Thank you very much. My lovely sisters and colleagues, Felice and Naila, I deeply appreciate it. AERA has been my intellectual home for the last 30 years since I entered the academy. 20 years before that, I was in the world of practice, didn't know anything about AERA, but AERA has been, a substantive home, and I deeply appreciate all the support over the years that I've gotten by this wonderful community of scholars.
About time then that we lift up and congratulate everyone, all of the awardees for 2021, and all of those who are joining us, whether in practice, policy, or research, for continuing the effort to bring not only advancements in education and learning, but also to do so in equitable and inclusive ways. Congratulations, everyone.
Hear, hear.
And to Naila, thank you for joining me backstage.
Cheers. What a wonderful evening. Thank you all.